and gentlemen, welcome back to Sober Sitdown. This is your host, Scotty Stutch, here on this beautiful Sunday morning. I get fellow podcaster, author, clothing apparel owner, I could keep naming all day, YouTube's bad boy, Gunner Alan Lindbloom, all the way from Detroit. What's up, Gunner?
Hey, how you doing? Good morning. I'm getting ready to. This is how I'm starting up my day with the coffee and this interview, and then I'm gonna hunt later. So I'm looking forward. This will be my first hunt of the year. It's been very hard for me to not hunt because I live out in the woods on my property. But the key to getting a buck is not pressuring the property, and the bucks aren't going to be moving till about now. And the weather's right and the wind's right, so I've been timing it. You know, in previous seasons, I would run out in the woods every day, and I see a lot of does, small bucks, but I'm not seeing that big one that I want. So, looking forward to that.
Is it cold out there in Detroit right now?
I'm not in Detroit. I'm 5 hours from Detroit, up north. I'm way up north in the woods. I live on 20 acres, like a 20-acre homestead. I got chickens. I got, I just live out in the woods. Really, just try to avoid people.
So you grew up in Detroit, though? That's where you grew up, like right around Detroit area?
Yeah, I grew up in suburbs of Grosse Pointe and St. Clair Shores as a kid. I had a pretty messed up childhood. I told these stories so many times, it's almost robotic for me now. I know. Oh, by the way, I have a condition called trigeminal neuralgia. It's a thing that makes makes my nose like tingle and itch and drip. So sometimes I get blown out. So, yeah, man, my mother was Grace Carmela Tocco. Her father is Peter Paul Tocco. He was the cousin of Giacoma Blackjack Tocco, and they were who was the boss of the mob in Detroit. So I'll get right into that. And they were there was a community of Sicilians who lived in that area that were very, very close. They all came from the same little town, Terrisini, Sicily, and took great pride in that. And so that was kind of their world. They did not interact with people outside of that. They didn't interact with people that weren't Sicilian. Like if you weren't part of this community, they didn't do business with you. They didn't talk to you. It was, and this is first and second generation Sicilians. Most of them spoke English good, but the first generation ones didn't. In fact, they never did. Like my grandparents and a lot of that generation or grandparents generation, they didn't speak like any English. They got a couple words, and they all so they built their own church, they built their own clubs and restaurants and everything. So everybody shopped and interacted, did everything. So they were very close, very close. I mean, to be honest, I can't articulate how cloistered and reclusive that social network was, of social society was. You just can't explain it. You'll never know unless you come from an ethnic background. If you come from an ethnic background, if you're an Arab, Arabs do it like that. If you're a Greek, Greeks do it. There was a few Greeks in our neighborhood, but if you're like Sicilian, that's it, man. That's all you ever know. So when I moved there with my grandparents when I was 4, because my parents got divorced. My dad was a drunken, womanizing wife beater, and so my mom brought me and my sister to live with my grandpa Tocco in Grosse Pointe. When you're 4 years old, I was like 5 years old. That's about the time in your life you're starting to become cognizant of things. You're starting to be aware of your surroundings and how people act and what happens. And and I hung around a bunch of my cousins, because, like I said, the only people that interacted in my world were my aunts and uncles and cousins. They come over, they bring their kids, I play with them, or we go over there, I play with them. We go to a party, I play with them. We go to a wedding, I play with them. I went to school, I played with them. That was, that was all it was. It's the same group of. There's a few like outsider kids from the neighborhood I played with, but I was nervous about it. They didn't eat our food. They didn't talk like us. They didn't have our sense of humor. They didn't do anything. So I was standoffish, and I kind of kept it to me and my cousins. And of course, being a bad kid that I was, I migrated towards some of the bad kids. Like my cousin Frankie and Johnny and Pete. These guys all were troublemakers like me. I would end up being the worst one. Well, not really, because Johnny and Frank are doing life in prison. But at the time, I was the worst one. So anyways, so I remember was a point where there was a girl I had a crush on. Her name was Jackie, and she had a party, and she didn't invite me to her party, and I was like kind of crushed. So I would ask her, like, why didn't you invite me to your party? She says, my mom says you're in the mafia. I'm like, what the frick? I don't even know what that means. So I started asking I asked my uncle, who was 12 years older than me. He was like a big brother, not so much an uncle or a father figure. He was a big brother. Like, and I tell him that. I remember the day I said it to him. We were in the back room, and he had one of his buddies with him. And I said, well, what's the mafia? And they said, would you hear that? And I tell them. They start laughing. He said, don't worry, it's our family. You'll find out soon enough. And I think the guy with him, his buddy, cousin, was also like a mob, young connected mob guy. Anyways, I started looking. You have reverb? You have your phone still on or something? I'm hearing a reverb. Where's that come from? I just started hearing.
I don't know. It's not coming through on my end. I don't have a phone on or nothing.
I can hear me talking. No big deal. I just sometimes StreamYard is not the greatest for the recording. You should probably use Zoom. I mean, in my opinion, I've made like 400 shows, so I've learned that StreamYard is so glitchy sometimes that it can be funky. And if you just use an app to edit, like you use the Zoom, download it to your phone even, and you have the app on your phone, you can edit. Anyways, I digress. I'll tell you later. So eventually I started, around that age, 5, 6 years old, I started paying attention to my family, closer attention. And I'd never seen a mafia movie or nothing like that. I didn't know what mafia was, mob was, but I knew what my family was. I knew what my uncles looked like. I knew it. And they come and go, these big, heavy set, dark skinned, Sicilian, fat kind of big guys with big pinky rings, smoking cigars, big knot of money. They pay for everything. Every time you go anywhere, I got this, Pete, and pay for it. And they'd always shove like $5 and $10 bills. On my birthday, I might get a 20. And they were coming and going all day, my whole life. And sometimes my grandparents or my uncle would take me to the Eastern Market. The Eastern Market was kind of like Mob Central. It was Mob Central. Basically, since some prohibition, the Eastern Market was controlled by the mob. It's like a quarter-mile square of just wholesale produce and food businesses. There's these old warehouses, and you go into these old warehouses, and there's like a little lounge area. Almost all of them have like a little. It's old, it's dirty. It's they've been around for 50 freaking years. But there's usually a pool table or a poker table, and there's always 2, 3, 4, young like wise guys hanging out in there. They were my uncle's friends. He'd bring me down there, and I'd watch them, and I kind of absorb their behavior, hear what they were saying, look how they were dressed, absorb how they acted, and I kind of like wanted to emulate them because they were like cool as hell. They had all these. They always good-looking girls around. They all had money. They wore tracksuits and leather jackets like this, and they were slick as hell, really, really funny and witty. I'm like, man, those guys are the man. So as I kind of came up as a kid, I started trying to emulate them a little bit. And then but I noticed though, wherever we went, especially with my grandfather, everybody was very, very respectful, very respectful. They go, hey, Pete, how you doing, goombadi? And they'd give him a handshake and a hug, kiss him on the cheek. And he'd go to buy some meat from the deli, and they go, no, Pete, it's on me. Just bring it home to mama. And he'd always, wherever we go, didn't matter where we went, like people wouldn't take his money. And it almost seemed like they were scared of him or something. And he was the nicest guy, though. He was a super nice guy. He did that to everybody. And that's probably why they did it, too, because he did it anytime somebody went to his business. And like I said, that community, the heart of it in business was down in the Eastern Market. So there are like 20 businesses that are all mobbed up, mob run in that area. And everybody's coming and going from each other's business. Because if somebody gets an order or something and you don't have it, you go call Pete and say, hey, do you have this? Of course I got it. Here you go. If you don't go, so they're all constantly interacting. And they come by, they walk a block down, they walk by, they come in the door. Hey, Padans, they walk in, there's 4 or 5 guys playing dice or poker. I played dice a lot. I was like one of the only ones who liked to play dice. But playing poker or pool, hanging out. And they're hanging out because the business needs to be managed. And they usually hired a bunch of black dudes or something to load the trucks. But they had to manage them. You know what I'm saying? They had to manage. So the wise guys, the young kids, whatever, that's what you want to call them. They'd hang out and just kind of manage it. You get orders, and there's pallets of food in the freezers or the refrigerators or downstairs. And the whole downstairs were like a refrigerator. That was at ours. But anyway, so I got to interact with all these guys, and I'm watching them and noticing things. I'm noticing how my family's treated, and I saw it. I began to understand that whatever this mafia is, it's different, and so it's something that it's just us, and like some of my cousins and uncles and all that. But I began to piece together who was who too. Thanks to my uncle. I mean, I didn't figure out who the boss was probably until like 14, 15 years old, but the guys who were like more powerful guys, made guys, they acted like it. They had everybody was extra respectful and real whispery with them, and they acted like they had that swag. And I could name some names right now, but I'm not gonna. But my Uncle Joe was one that stood out. He was just, that's who he was. So anyways, I got expelled from school when I was 15 years old in high school. I was a bad kid. I was constantly fighting, tearing things. I mean, I was just so sad. I mean, I was such a mess as a kid. And I failed 8th grade the first time. They sent me back to 8th grade the second time. I was expelled halfway through the year at 15. So now I go right into selling drugs because I didn't have any food in the house. My dad wouldn't buy food. So I got some dude front me some weed, quarter pound of weed. I went and sold it to in this crack neighborhood, which it's all crack, all blacks, and they sell crack right in the corner. And they needed good weed, and I went there and sold the whole thing. My cousin Johnny came with me, was carrying a 44 Magnum pistol that's about freaking this big, and we pumped it, and I made like $400 or $500, and I started doing it. And then as I started doing this, I started making some money. Now I got some money, so I bought some tracksuits, bought some gold chains, I bought some rings, start looking like my uncle's friends, And around that time, my uncle found some weed in one of my jackets, a leather jacket like this, a black one. And we had the same jacket. He bought it for me. And it was a nice freaking jacket, like a $500 jacket. And he originally bought me a brown one. I didn't like it. I said, I want the black one like yours. So he took it back and got me the black one. And I left. I had a knot like $800 in the pocket and a bag of weed, like an ounce of weed. I went to my grandparents' house for the Sunday dinner. I still went there every Sunday for dinner, or just basically hang out the whole day every Sunday. Like to hang out with my grandpa. He loves football. We'd watch football. My uncle says, Alanzo, you want to go to the market with me? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'll stay here. He says, all right. So he grabbed the jacket, thinking it's his jacket, puts it on, goes down to the market. And I'm like 16 years old. And sometime while he was gone, he discovered that it's not his jacket. And there's an ounce of weed in this jacket, and he's got $800 an ounce of weed. And and drugs are a big no-no in our house. They're a big no-no. So I was freaking out when he confronted me, because he had got busted with selling cocaine previously, and his not long before this, like a year maybe less, and his parents were freaking out. My grandparents were just on him every day, just razzing him and busting his balls about drugs and selling drugs. What a scumbag he is. And so I was like, yo, if he tells grandpa, I'm hit, I wasn't living there yet. No, I wasn't. I was living with my dad. Anyway, so he comes in the basement. He says, what's this? Here's the weed. I said, it's weed. He said, what are you doing with it? I said, selling it. He said, this is bullshit weed. You're going to sell weed, sell good weed. He brings me in the garage, picks up a box, opens it up. There's like 10 pounds in it. He says, take a couple of these. What are you paying for your pounds? Like $1,000 a pound. He's like, all right, $1,000 a pound, take them, go. So my uncle started having me sell his weed. And then he discovered I had a bunch of stolen merchandise. We came to drop weed off one day because I was buying like stolen merchandise with weed and then selling it to my customers and making double, triple my money, like car amps and stereos and cameras and TVs and stuff. I had it all piled up in my bedroom. And he comes and was like, what's this? I tell him. He's like, man, bring it to the pawn shop. He had a pawn shop. They fenced stolen merch. He said he had points with this pawn shop. And so he says, I'll buy it all. I said, all right. So I started buying stolen merch and double and triple my money. And that just led one thing to another, led to me doing all kinds of scams and rackets with this dude, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it just led you down a dark path of crime and self-destruction because all he hung around was criminal. He hung around the outlaw bikers, and he was connected to all these mafiosi we grew up with that were his cousins and stuff. And he was slick about it. I'll be honest. He didn't want to be in the mob like all the way in. He'd tell me that you don't want to be in, then you got to kick money up to some old man, and then you gotta do what he says. He says, jump, you just got to stay how high. He says, kill that guy, you got to kill that guy. Could be your friend. He's like, F them. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be in like that. Keep doing what you're doing. Make your money, hustle on the side. F those mother effers. You know, we never want that. Not, well, he was talking about me, but he said that's, you know, how I feel. And he could have been, you know, he's 100% Sicilian. I was half breed, so I had no opportunity. And even if I was some kind of upcoming mob's prodigy, a star, really something, then that's the boss or someone could have said, hey, he's half Sicilian on his mother's side. He changes his name to Tocco. We'll make it. But I'm like, I don't F them old men. I never was impressed with them old men anyways. I was just like, why would I be scared of some fat old man? Like, it made no sense to me. Like, the whole mob thing was goofy. Like, I'm like, because I was the toughest guy around in the neighborhood. And they got to the point where they started calling me. My Uncle Pete had me one day. He says, I want to pay you to hurt this guy named Tony. And I'm like, isn't he your kind of like your business partner? He says, yeah. He's like, but he backdoored me on the scam we got going. They were stealing construction equipment and construction materials from a subdivision they were building out in the suburbs. They go in there at night with trucks and get all the wood, steal the tools, generators, whatever. And then the insurance would cover that stuff, and they'd sell it to this guy. Anyways, his partner was undercutting him and selling it to some other guys, so he could cut his for cheaper, so he could cut my uncle's portion out of it for a lower price. So he finds out because the guy calls my uncle, says, hey man, just want to let you know your boy's freaking backdooring you. My uncle says, Alanzo, I want you to hurt this guy. And my uncle wasn't a tough guy. He just wasn't a tough guy. You know, he knew I was. I was always fighting and knocking. I mean, you know, I could do these shows and people just don't get it. I was bad. I was a bad kid, always knocking someone out, always fighting. The fights weren't really fights. I would just break a motherfucker's jaws, knocking them out, sometimes pulling a gun. But anyways, he said, I'll give you $800 to beat this guy's ass, but I want him hurt. And so I did. We set up a meeting. He had no idea it was coming. Maybe he did have an idea it was coming because he actually showed up with his dog. He had a big German Shepherd. And that's a whole nother story. We had a big German Shepherd now, and I went in the bathroom. I told my uncle, I said, I'm not doing it with the dog there, man. So get it tore up by this dog. I think he must know. So I went over to the owner of the place who was bartending at the time. This is in the ghetto too. This is in the hood. It's like a little social club in the hood. Black dude owns a heroin dealer, big heroin dealer, black dude, and was friends with the family, friends with us. You know, he was the middleman that paid the local cops. We'd give him the money, and he'd pay off the cops for us for all the protection in the market and all that. Anyways, I said, you got to tell that guy, get the dog out of here, man. So he did, and then as soon as he said, the guy said, put it in his car and came back in. I beat the shit out of him. I felt kind of bad, but that was the type of stuff they have me do over and over and over. Not tons of times, but there was one time, one of my cousins was beating his wife. And they came to me because I was friends with them, and I warned him, stop doing this, man. You know, he's like, she's drunk. She attacked me. I'm like, you're drunk. Anyways, he kept doing it. The uncle came to me and said, listen, I want you to set this up so we can get him. And I said, all right. So set it up. I was at a club, walked out back door, went up, smoke a joint, and the cousin and the father were there, and they stabbed him in the throat, beat the shit out of him. As I held the guy, and they're all like, he's going, hell, why? I said, motherfucker, I told you, man, put your hands on your wife, man. What's wrong with you? Yeah, that they don't fly. You can't do that. Anyway, so stuff like that when I started 17, 18, 19, 20. But again, I wasn't impressed with these freaking old men because, A, they're old men. That's the thing. Like when you get these mob groupies that are like mob hero worshipers, they hero worship them. But I wasn't that guy. I just didn't care. I grew up around them, these old men. Why would I be impressed? I was really athletic. I played sports, and I could basically whip anyone's ass around. There were guys who could whip my ass, I'm sure. And I knew of a few guys in the neighborhood in the area that I didn't want to fight. But they were cool. We became cool. We were boys. They felt the same way about me. Like I wouldn't want to fight out. So you kind of come to a mutual respect with a lot of the real tough guys. And the ones that are just bullies and fake tough guys, F them, I'll break their freaking jaw if they even look at me wrong. But why would I respect some, have this hero worshiping grand respect for an old dude who can't whoop my ass? And Uncle Pete says one day, they got guns though. Here's the thing. I said, I got guns too. My dad was a gun dealer. and he had like walk-in safe with all these guns. I had tons of guns, machine pistols, like AK-47. And I'm thinking, and I actually go target shooting with my dad all the time. So I'm a good shot. We'll grab cases of ammo and go out to the range. We'll just make our own range, like in the woods, just like a sandy hill, and we just blast through freaking 1,000 rounds. So I'm thinking to myself, what the frick? I told a couple of these higher level guys when they say, Alanzo, you can't whoop everybody. And he said, someday someone's going to come with one of these. And I said, well, I got these too. And one time I had the pistol on. I said, I got one too. I said, I'm a good shot with it. So they better get me, because if they don't, I'm going to get them. I'm going to get whoever sent them. And they kind of laughed, hee hee ha ha. And that was it. I mean, so in my mind, I'm like, these old men, if they want to send somebody to try to get a guy with a gun, I got guns too, It comes down to who's crazier. And I was. I proved it. I proved it many times to them in the streets doing the crimes and the beatings and the robberies and whatever, and proved it when I did all the crimes and sent me to prison. So they looked at me like I was an asset. Tony Giacolone, he said, you're an old school, man. You're a throwback. He always say, you remind me of me at your age. You remind me of me. He called me Patu Lapara, called me the Bloodhound, because I was good at finding people. And like the first day he sent me on to find somebody, I found to get money. He hooked me up with a bookie. He tells me, I need you to go see Johnny Nev for work, construction job. I'm like, I don't want to do no freaking construction job. But, he kind of, now this is my grandpa's goombadi. This is my grandpa's friend. And my grandpa had asked him to get me some work. So he got me a job bouncing at a high-end nightclub, which was all mobbed up. And I worked at a couple casino nights and poker games too. And so he calls me and he says, I had already done like a beating for him though. I'd already done a beating. And I told that story so many times I don't even want to tell it. But it was basically called me some drunk dude came home drunk and beat his wife and passed out. And that wife called him. I think it was his girlfriend or something. And he called me because I only live three miles from and at 7 o'clock in the morning, he calls me and just says, can you handle this? I said, yeah, I'm on it. I went over to the house and beat the shit out of him. And I didn't beat the shit out of him. Like, I'm pretty sure he went straight to the hospital to get his face stitched up. I had a big nugget ring. I just pulverized him. Pulled him out of bed by his hair. Just wham, wham, wham. Anyway, so Tony was aware of my propensity for violence. He was aware of it. So if he needed it, to send a message, I was there. And here's the thing. He didn't ever pay me really, but having my name attached to him gave me a lot of juice. It gave me a lot of leverage when like I started my own loan sharking book or when I was collecting for some bookies, being attached to him, being like, hey, Tony sent me. Being able to say that made all the difference. If I say Tony sent me, or this is Tony's money or whatever. So it gave me a lot of juice in the street, but that's the only one that I ever kind of looked at like it was anything. I mean, the boss would come to our house occasionally, pretty frequently. I might see him a couple times a year, but I'm coming and going at my grandparents' house. It's kind of a fluke if I'm there and he's there. But I pull up, there's a car in the driveway. He had a burgundy Buick. I can't remember what it was. They all drove different cars. They weren't flashy though. Most of them, they all had Cadillacs and Lincolns. I mean, that's not super flashy, but that's what they drove. The telling thing. So I walk in there and I see him and I go, "Hey, Uncle Jack, how you doing?" He'd look at me, nod, whatever. He just didn't seem like a very friendly guy. He didn't seem like he looked at me like I was a thug, which I was. So naturally, And so he was very respectful of my grandpa, which is his cousin. These guys grew up together since they were like 5 years old. They lived in the same neighborhood, and they have the same last name. Lived in the same neighborhood, like 5-block radius, and grew up together with the same school, same everything, worked together, same church, everything. So I never knew, and I still don't, and I never will know what my grandpa's role was and why Jack Tocco would come around. In my mind, I like to say maybe I like to believe. Not saying I like to believe. I feel like my grandpa was a good man. He had a sports book, but that ended when he was like in about the time I went to high school. I think that he was a middleman. I think that he would relay orders. So, like a Jack Tocco or Tony Giacolone would come over. They'd hang out in the back room. They don't shut the door. They'd speak in Sicilian, maybe 20, 30 minutes. Then he'd leave. And then my grandpa would say, Alonzo, let's go to the market, because his eyes were going bad. And so I started driving. Take me to the market. Or I got to go see Goombadi Shilufo. I got to go see Goombadi Randazzo. I got to go see Body Corrado, whoever it was. So we jump in the car and we drive around and go from this place to that place to that place. And he'd go in there and buy something from their business. They would give him stuff, blah, blah, blah. But he'd always go in there and then kind of speak Sicilian to him for 5 minutes, and then we'd leave. So I think, the boss was saying, hey, Pete, listen, go see your Goombadi Shilufo. Tell him to do this, that, and the other. And my grandpa would be like, okay, no problem, Jack. And do it. I mean, it makes sense because he was a low radar guy. He'd been a straight shooter and a good dude for all his life. So, and the feds he wasn't involved in a whole bunch of scumbaggery and scams and extortions and nothing like that. So he would be a perfect, liaison to relay orders, because nobody's following him. Probably they did follow him though. They did follow him. When I was a kid, there's this is found a scene in my book. Was inspired by this. When I was a kid, I was playing out front, and I look over, and this was a red car, or red or burgundy, like Buick or one of those square cars, 70. And I'm playing with my toys, and I look over, and this guy's taking pictures like this. So I go back in the backyard. My grandpa was working on his tomato plants, just like The Godfather. It's, tomatoes, and the whole freaking fence, the whole length of the backyard, all these fences. I said, Grandpa, there's a man out there taking pictures. My grandpa looks out there and sees him. He picks up a brick off the landscape and runs up on it and says, not my home, mother effers. Bang! Smashes the brick through the freaking window. They peel off. They take off. So they were on him. They followed him around. They were, trying to see what he did. And he was able to make us go through his whole life without ever being indicted, without going to prison. That's just a testament how slick he was. You know what I'm saying? And he did, listen, he owned a produce business in the Eastern Market for 25 years. He had, no, more than that, like 40 years. But he had a contract with the city of Detroit for 25 years, delivering all the food and produce to the public schools in Wayne County for 25 years. It's Detroit, Grosse Pointe, on and on and on. It's like 6 cities. That's the modern day equivalent, literally, of like maybe $8, $9, $10 million contract. And he had it for 25 years.
And we talked, not to cut you off, but we were talking on the phone. Explain to the audience how hard that was to get a contract like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You couldn't get there's no way you could never get a contract like that without the approval of mom. I'm sure Jack Tocco, the boss, he had a friend who was in with the city. Maybe they're directly involved with Jack. But he says, listen, my cousin Pete Tocco, give him this contract. And of course they're going to. Yes, sir, no problem, Jack. So then my grandpa gives Jack a kickback every year. He probably every year he went to the Christmas party and handed him an envelope or a bag with a couple $100,000. I don't know. It could have been 20,000. Probably was a lot. They see each other all the time, so he could come over to, hey, got a gift for you, Jack. Boom, it's 20,000, 50,000. And basically everybody was doing it to him. He had this going on all over the city, the entire Eastern Market. The amount of money. Listen, to give you an idea, the FBI believes when he died, Jack Tocco, worth $100 million, which I think is low, and he owned 100 businesses. Now, I collected $1.7 million after the Super Bowl once, and there's people who don't believe it. They're like, "Oh my God, they $1.7 million!" Like it's such a big deal. I'm like, dude, it took 3 days. It wasn't even a lot. Like there are guys out there who they just don't understand how much money is out there in the game. I do know that one FBI report estimated that one sports book alone is booking $100 million a year. So, 1.7 million is not that a lot of money. I didn't know it's for him. Tony said, here's a list of guys, get all their money. Well, what was happening was they knew an FBI indictment was coming. They knew like the Fed, sting was coming. And they're like, get all the money off the street. He's just, whatever they got, get it. I'm like, what's happening? He's like, we got business out east, I said. But he didn't tell me about the indictment. So I run around with my cousin. We get all this money, we count it, and bring it to the track. And when I bring it to the track, in comes walking Jack Tocco with a guy, his bodyguard or driver or whatever. And Tony says, give it to him. So I hand it to him. He knew. He looked right at me. He nodded like, I know who you are. I hand him the money, and they tell me to leave, get out and go. So I left. And I was scared because I had always thought the Hazel Park horse track was under surveillance, always. Because it was the boss owned it. And it was Mob Central, and all you had was all these like gambling degenerates hanging out in the bleachers and inside, and then all the bookies and stuff and loan sharks. And I did that too, to hang out with them, give them money, and and they need a little loan. I get the loan, I put some money on the street, and then when they owed me and didn't pay, I punch them in the face. All you had to do is punch one of them in the face a couple times, and everybody's paying. But it was just, that place was, I'm sure, was under surveillance. So years later, I did see FBI saw me walking out that very day with the duffel bag of money. They showed me walk in and they showed me walk out alone. And they showed a picture of Jack Tocco and his driver walking out with the bag. And they asked me what it was. And I said, Subway. It's a submarine. And they're like, we can't prove it. I'm like, I don't know. But they originally did say, we know about the money. We know about the money. I'm like, what money? What money? We know. We're not stupid. And maybe they were just feeling it out, see what they could give them. This is after I was arrested, by the way, and I was in jail, and they were trying to get me to flip. But anyways, so that was that, man. I wasn't. Let's make this perfectly clear. So the spastic mob groupies on YouTube who attack me, oh, you're lying. This stuff, you're not going to find it in a Google search. You're not going to find it in a 302. I didn't rat. You're not going to find it in a court case or a Fed document. None of this. I was a low-level thug. I was 20, 25 years old. By the time I was 25, I'm pretty much done with the mob because I got involved in drugs and nobody wanted to deal with me. But for like age 20 to 25, I was, up until the indictment, the RICO indictment, where they all got busted, I was involved to some degree, not majorly. When I tell these stories, I'm like, the mob group dudes think, oh my God, they act like it's a big deal. A big deal that Tony said, hey, go meet Johnny Nev, and Johnny's going to tell you, he's got some construction work. And I get there, he's like, what are we doing? This construction job. And he's like, construction job? It's not construction. I need help me with a tough guy. What do you mean? I got this guy. He owes me $10,000. He's spinning me. He's not paying. He's a big muscle-bound kid like you, and he thinks he can get away with not paying. So go talk to him and see if you get the money. You get the money, he'd give you 10%. It was $8,000 actually. So I found a guy, and I told the guy, listen, I'm representing Tony Giacolone. You know who that is? He says, yes. I said, here, you're in big trouble, man. This ain't going away. You need to get the money, and otherwise something really bad's going to happen to you, and it ain't going away. Like, it's real. So, and he went to his father, who was a rich dude, and told his dad, no question, Dad, I need it's $8,000 right now. Go to the bank to meet me at the house. I cannot, I'm telling you, please, I'm in big trouble. And they gave me the money, and I left. I drove with the guy the whole time. I had a pistol on me, but I never had to pull it out. And he was a big muscle-bound guy, older than me. He was probably like 24. Now I was like 21 or 20. And so I go back to Johnny Nev, and I say, here's your money. He's like, damn, you got that already? Only been like 4 hours, I said, damn, man, you're like a bloodhound. They started calling me a bloodhound. And so Tony was like, all right, Alanzo gets this done. This is who we can call when we have an issue like this or whatever. I'm sure he had other guys. I'm sure he had lots of other guys they could call. But I was a guy who was young, big, muscle-bound guy who was, known for knocking mother effers out. Well known. Known for being in the club, breaking jaws, knocking guys out. Known for just acting a little crazy. And that pushed them away more than it made them closer. Honestly, all my cousins who were in my generation, they liked to have me around in the club or parties in the street in the market because I was willing to just knock somebody out who crosses the line like that. But they didn't. I made them nervous. They were nervous. They were always kind of nervous that I could snap and flip on them and start freaking like pounding on them. I would have never done it, but they acted like they were nervous. They didn't even say that, man. Like I punched my one cousin in the leg one time. No, I was Don Krupa. I put a punch in the leg. I hit him in the leg. I walked in. He was at my boy Mike Kane's house getting ready to go out. I walk in, wham! I punched him in the thigh, right? I'm a Charlie. And he goes, oh, yeah, one of these freaking days. And I turn on and get ready to fight. I said, one of these days what, mother? What's you going to do? She said, one of these days someone's going to press charges on you. And the whole house started laughing because there were like 6-8 guys there. Everybody busted out laughing. I'm like, I laugh. That's funny. I'm like, here, punch me back, man. This dude was like 240 pounds of muscle, big muscle bound mother effer. I'm like, punch me back. He's like, no, Al. I'm like, why? Because I know better. Then you're going to punch me back again, even harder and harder. and then you'll go to the point where you'll push till you either kill me or I have to kill you. And I'm like, nah, bro, not at all. If I slug you in the shoulder, hit me back, I'll respect that. Say, all right, cool. And you know, these guys that I'd always punch on were like the bigger ones in my crew. They're always like, why aren't you punching on him? I'm like, because he's not supposed to be a tough guy. He's only a 180-pound dude. You know, he's a little skinny guy. You don't act like a tough guy. You are walking around here all the time, puffed up on steroids, acting like you're some kind of tough, big shot tough guy. So you can take it. Bam! Hit him. And anyways, most of my crew of guys that I hung around with, like my boy Mike Kane, he was a tough guy, and he didn't act it. He was a tall, muscle-bound, cut-up dude, about 215, 6'1", and real handsome. But he didn't act tough, but he was. You know what I'm saying? The real tough guys don't act tough. They don't have to. They just kind of mind their business, stay out of the way, and you know, they don't puff up. The ones that do start doing steroids and working out, they feel like, oh man, I'm big for the first time in my life. I'm on steroids and walk around the club puffed out and acting tough. Those are the guys I knock out. And so my cousins would be in the club all the time. And I bounced at this one nightclub that was all mobbed up. And like basically everyone, it was kind of the older generations went there a lot. And some of the young ones, and they see me knock a couple guys out over the years. But honestly, I was no major mafia figure. I was around them. I did some things for them. And those things won't be documented in a Fed case or a court document. It's just the way it is. People don't realize this, man, and this is where it gets goofy with the groupies. I mean, they're really clueless. Even like the rat reporter, Scott Bernstein and stuff. He doesn't get it. He's not a street guy. None of them are. They don't get that 99% of what happens in a mafia family and its members and associates, the feds don't know about it, and there's never a documentation. It just isn't. That goes the same for all crime in the street. 99% we don't hear about. We just hear about the 1% that. So when they indicted the mob indictment for Rico in '96, they indicted 11 guys. Only 11, and one of them was my friend Frank, who's dead. And when they did that, so when you ask like Bernstein, who else is involved? You know, that there was a couple hundred associates. All those 11 guys had their own little crews, some bigger than others, and some of those guys had their own little crews, some bigger than others. Could be from 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. I had a crew of guys. I would have been considered one of those branches. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I could be called Tony Jacks, or maybe I'd call my Uncle Pete's. But I was definitely associated. And I had my friends. I had two friends named Ricky. I had my boy Frank. My cousin Pete, cousin Dom, Tony. So all these guys were associated to a degree, and some of those guys they just named had their own uncles and like grandfathers that were, you know, mobbed up. But there's no record of it, because when you're 20 years old, the FBI, they don't have resources to allocate people to follow around 20, 21, 25-year-old kids who are kind of brushing up against these guys, may or may not be involved in illicit activity. You know, here they're selling weed. I was on the radar for selling drugs, so I'd already been busted for steroids, and they tried to get me for weed. So, you know, they're like, oh, they were watching surveillance, and I went to the market. I met Tony in the market. I used to meet him at Dimitri's on 9 Mile. If they followed him there, and they see me meet him, talk to him, and they're like, who is that? I'm like, that's Alan Lindbloom, Gunner Lindbloom, whatever. Check his name. On his name is a file says drug deal, low level drug dealer, associate, mob associate, blah blah. He's a Tocco, blah blah. That's it. They're not going to follow me around and take pictures. They probably took some pictures, but I was nobody. So, anyways, so that's what I ended up doing until I was 29 years old. Like I said, after the Rico case in '96, where all these guys got busted. And I was really worried about I was really worried about getting busted myself, because, like I said, just like 2 weeks before this, I had collected all that money, and I went and met with so many guys. I met like 30 guys, 40 guys, and then I have to go with them to get the money, because sometimes they're like, oh, I got to go here, here, and there. I got to sell this and do that, and so I mean, I knew I was worried that I could be involved in that, you know, the Rico, but it never did. They questioned me. They did bring me in and question me. He said, what do you know about this, that? Showed me a couple pictures. I'm like, I don't know. So I didn't have nothing on me. But anyways, so after that, I was kind of shook. And that's around the time I started using drugs. I had already had a battle with drugs before this, when I had broke my knuckle when I was like 20, and they gave me pain pills, and I liked them, and I liked them a lot. So I figured out how to beat some scripts and get some Tylenol 3s and Vicodins, and I was buying them from all over, and I liked them. And I still worked out, I still did the gym, did everything I was doing. And you're talking to a guy who never had a job either. I didn't, I just ran around the streets hustling, selling weed, steroids, anything I could make a buck on, stolen merch, anything. And if I got a call from Tony, say, hey man, go help, Johnny get some money off the street, he's got a problem, I'd go do it and make, $800 or $1,000 or a couple $100. That wasn't the work I wanted to do. Trust me when I tell you, the stuff that they're hero worshipers are going to go, I hated doing that stuff because it was actually work. Like, I got to go track some freaking douchebag deadbeat down and convince them to pay up and go sell a sailboat or whatever it is. You got to get the money. It was bullshit money. I didn't make my money, but I wasn't going to say no. I couldn't say no to him because it was Tony Jack. So anyways, then when I broke my knuckle, then I said the pills. So the way I got off drugs that time, I was on drugs for like 3 months, right? And I ended up getting caught with a pistol. I was parked in the parking lot of Macomb Mall, and we were doing a credit card scam, right? And I already ran the scam several times, so I didn't want to go in there and do it again. So I told my boy Mark Monday, I said, run in there and return this thing or whatever that I bought on the credit card, and for cash. Just say you don't have the receipt. So it was like an $800 item. I think it was a treadmill or something. I can't remember what it was, but a nice chunk of money. And while I'm waiting for him, I got my pistol, which was a 44 Desert Eagle that I just bought off the street. It was crazy, man. That I had traded a Mac 11 for it that I got from my dad. But it was this big, stupid pistol. It was cool, man. I was wild with it, man. I remember being at a party in Detroit with all these black dudes, and I just pulled it out and started target shooting at garbage can. Bam, bam, so loud. Boom, boom, and boom. This huge freaking 44 Magnum. Boom. Everybody runs and scatters. This crazy white boy. Anyways, I was playing with it. Like, I don't know what I was doing with it in the car. Somebody must have walked by and saw me because they called the cops and said there's a guy parked in the parking lot with a freaking big gun. I didn't even know. I don't know how anyone saw me. Nobody walked by. I didn't recall it. But of course, when you're high on drugs, you're not all there. You know what I'm saying? I'm there playing with this gun. I had shot a couple of rounds through the floor of my car. I scare my buddy. I'm like, come on. What the frick? Anyways, so the cops pull out. When I go to pull out, they zoom out to get me. One of the cops happens to be a friend's father, and I know him. So they don't charge me with like, they don't charge me with felony firearm. They charge me with possession of a weapon undisclosed, and I pay a bond, man. I get out, it's like $700 for the bond. I talked to my boy's dad, and he says, no, we're not going to charge you with felony firearm. A felony firearm is 2 years flat. You don't get out of it. It's flat out 2 years. See you in 2 years. So, anyways, they gave me like 2 weeks in the county jail. Well, that was perfect because that's all I needed to get cleaned up. So they put me in the county jail. And the funny part was my boy Ricky, who wasn't really my boy at the time, yet he's just some scumbag kid from the neighborhood who steals stuff and bought weed from me. He just got out of prison before that, and he got busted selling acid and weed again from his grandmother's house. And he was fighting his case. He's going back to prison. So I go in there. I don't even recognize the dude, man, because he had grown up a little bit. He'd come out because he was in prison for like 2.5 years. And when he was from age 16, 18 or 19, he was in prison. And now I see him. He's all tattooed up, covered in tattoos, big muscle bound kid. And I go in my cell. Just walked in. I got 2 weeks. I'm kicking dope. And he sees me. He's like, "Hey, man, what's up?" I don't even recognize. This is Ricky. And so we became boys. I hung out with the dude the whole 2 weeks. And he became like my boy. I fell in love with the kid, man. He was funny as hell. He was punking all these black dudes out and stuff. They all thought they were terrified of him because he had been to prison. You know what I'm saying? Covered in tattoos, flinching mother. He was so funny. He wasn't even a tough guy. He wasn't at all. Dude, I flinched him. It's funny as hell. He's one of the guys I punched on. And he cried. Oh. Anyway, but it was funny. So I liked him, and then when I left after 2 weeks, I'm clean, my body's better, I'm doing good. I did send him money every month for like the next 4 years, man. Every month. I said, tell my girl, send Ricky $30, $20. And I accepted one collect call from him a month. He would call my girlfriend's house, and my girlfriend would three-way me, and that call would be like $18. And so I'd talk to him once a month, send him money. When I was in prison, how much money do you think he sent me?
Zero.
How much money do you think he sent me? Yeah, exactly.
Zero.
He didn't send me nothing. Punk. That's just the way it goes, man. All these guys. But anyways, so that's the first how I got off drugs. The first time, second time I got off, I broke my ankle. And I broke my ankle. The pain pills led to more pills, led to a heroin addiction. And this time it was like for like 18 months. I was probably heroin the last like 3 months. And I was selling heroin the whole time. I was selling heroin, kind of big weight, ounces. I was getting kilos of it fronted to me. So now I was making a couple $100 an ounce from a mob guy, believe it or not, a cousin of mine. And everything was good. I ended up getting busted for, long story, my girlfriend's crackhead brother ratted me out. And they didn't arrest me when that happened. They raided the house. I wasn't there. They left an affidavit saying they were there, and they seized all this stuff, including the drugs. They didn't find $34,000. It was in the closet under some towels. I have no idea how they didn't find that. No idea. And so maybe it was strategic. Maybe they wanted to leave it there and see what I do with it, like who I go pay or whatever. I don't understand how they couldn't find $34,000 in cash in the linen closet that was just under some towels. You know what I'm saying? While they raided a house, a drug house. It was my house, but it wasn't in my name, and I wasn't there when they raided it. It was in my girlfriend's name. Nice house in Roseville, nice little starter house. It was the first house we bought it. And so I told the guy, the drugs ain't mine. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't even live there. He's like, yeah, maybe not. He's like, pending lab results, you have no charges. You don't need nothing. Blah, blah. I was like, all right. I said, you don't have nothing. You don't have enough to even get a charge. There's no charges on this. You're never going to charge me with nothing. He says, maybe not. They never saw me there. They never got a hand-to-hand sell or buy. There's no fingerprints on the dope. Nothing tying me there. But there's pictures of me there. And there was a pistol there. And what else did they have? A bunch of photo albums and pictures with me in it. And a car. There was a car in the driveway that was in my name, an old Corvette. And I said, I'm storing it at my girlfriend's house. I don't have room at my house. So I'm not there. I know who it is. It was her crackhead brother. That's who it was. He's trying to put it off on me. He's like, what? But it wasn't. We got it to come out in court. Anyways, so now when I get busted with the dope, nobody is dealing with me. Nobody will deal with me. It was, I'm writing a TV script right now, right? And in this TV script, there are elements of this story that I've incorporated, to this fiction TV series. And it's similar. Once I got busted, there was a kid who lived across the street from me. I think his name was Daryl. Doug, excuse me. He was a drug dealer and a hustler. Tough guy, too. He liked me. He's a couple years younger than me, looked up to me, thought I was a G. He told everybody my house got raided. He called my girl when the house was being raided and said, just so you know, the feds are up in your house, raiding the shit out of it, tearing it up. She calls me here screaming and crying, what'd you do? What'd you do? What'd you do? I'm like, dude, what? What do you? And the worst part was I was driving her brother around, the crackhead who set it up. I was driving. And anyways, so the guy, Doug, naturally is telling everybody he knows, listen, I saw friggin' Lindbloom get busted. He raided his house, yada, yada. He's still on the street. So now people are like, he's still on the street. That don't make sense. Then they can go into court docs and records and say, well, did he pay a bond? Did he pay, was he arrested? What's his charges? There's nothing there. Well, what does that make me look like? It makes me look like I'm a rat. And so they did that intentionally. They intentionally did this. So now they're going to kind of watch what I do. I'm a cockroach in life now because everybody I deal with, drug dealers, hustlers, scumbag, everybody goes, they don't want nothing to do with me. Nothing. Because they know I got busted with like a kilo of heroin. You know what I'm saying? And that's a lot of heroin. It was 2 kilos, actually. It was just under 2 kilos. And like, dude, that's a huge bust. That's a huge, probably would have been one of the biggest busts. And if I convicted me, would have been one of the biggest in Roseville ever. You know, that's $180,000 worth of heroin. So now nobody will deal with me. Now the guy I was getting it from, Angelo, my cousin, he won't deal with me. Like, he don't even answer my phone for like 2 weeks. And I finally get a message to him to meet me. And I said, bro, this is what happened. I didn't rat. I'm not doing nothing. He said, pending lab results, then the charge. I ain't ratting, you know. He's like, well, you got to shut it down. You shut it down, right? You shut it down. I said, yeah, shut it down. He's like, well, what about my 180? The 180,000. I'm like, I'm working on it. He's like, I need that. You know what I'm saying? I need that money. It's a lot of money. It's like, now can I re-up money? So I ended up going to this drug dealer, a weed dealer named Bebe. Black dude, I got out of the heroin game and into the weed game. I told him, get out of the heroin. It's too much time. Get in the weed, because he had a good connection to good weed. And I said, so he started selling hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weed. But it was kind of expensive, so I didn't deal with him a lot. It was like highly priced. If I had a buyer that wanted to pay, you know, $1,400, $1,500 a pound, then I'd go with him. But typically I was like $1,000 a pound, so I could make a couple $100 on each pound. So I tell him, listen, I need 200 pounds. He's nervous. He don't know about the bus because he's like a black dude from the hood. He don't know the other circles that I'm in. He just knows I'm a, you know, white boy hustler from the suburbs. I said, I need 200 pounds, baby. I can't remember his real name. Anyways, man, I felt bad, dude. He brings me the weed in like a washing machine box. It's got like a, but it's got like a, you know, a wood frame to it, and in a truck. We load it into my truck. I had a little Jeep truck, kind of a low profile, a little bit kind of hoopy Jeep truck. We load it in the Jeep truck. I tell him I got to go get the money. So wait here, and I never came back. You know, so he actually tracked me down though, tracked my house down after I was in prison, after I was in jail, after I'd been arrested, and asked my girl, like, you know, where's he at? She's like, he's in prison for a long, long time. There's nothing he could do. I just jacked him. So now I go take the 200 pounds. I don't even sell it. I just say, here, Angelo, you take this for the freaking 180. I might have kept some pounds. I might have kept a few pounds. Probably kept 5 pounds. And he says, yeah, you know, I'll take that for the 180. I said, all right, cool. So now I'm even with Angelo, but now nobody's dealing with me. Nobody. I can't, you know, like I used to do armed robberies. I used to do stick ups and like, what's the thing that I robbed well, like I jacked a truck full of computers one time, you know, that were going to this electronics store. I'm not even gonna say where it was. And I jacked the Coca-Cola truck, just always scram banks, didn't matter, scamming and robbing. I robbed a lot of drug dealers, you know. I get them in good confidence with me, get them good rapport, get them to trust me. Then I get them up to like 10, 12 pounds. I need just 10 pounds of weed, and I take it and never come back. And if they came looking for me, I'd be like, listen, man, I'll kill you. Get the frick away from me. You want to die over this? Get the frick away from me. Pull out a pistol, smash him in the face. Frick out of here. I'd punch him in the face and then pull a pistol out. And they're just like, oh, yeah, that's nothing serious. I'm like, I know it ain't. Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, so that was what I was doing. But I burned all my bridges at that time. This is before I went to prison. Burned them all. So now I'm on this desperate kind of renegade. My Uncle Pete says to me, what are you doing? Because my cousin Johnny shot a couple of drug dealers, right? And actually, my Uncle Pete thought I was with him when he did it, but I wasn't. I almost was. He came to meet me, and he told me he wanted me to be security for this drug deal. Like, wanted me to work, like, be there as security. I think it was 5 kilos of coke. And I said at the last minute, I'm like, nah, because I knew him. I'd seen him shoot guys before. He had me help him set him up to shoot a guy and rob him one time at the titty bar. This drunk dude who had a bunch of cash, and then he said, "Hell, you drive him home." And I drove him home, and they jumped out of a van and freaking rocked over, shot him, and took all his money, like 10 grand. And I guess afterwards, I go, because they had masks on. After I heard him yelling, I peel off. I said, "Bro, you give me some of that money." He's like, "What money?" I said, "Last night, mother. I first don't think I recognize your voice. You freaking dummy. Why'd you shoot him?" He's like, "I didn't want to leave a witness." But the guy lived. He wasn't even shot that bad. So I know that Johnny's this kind of guy, and so I don't trust this mother effer as far as I can throw him. But so I don't go to this drug deal. I said, no, I'm good. I don't go. And so the next day, there's a story in the newspaper about it. Guys shot 2 guys, and they think it was a drug deal gone bad. So I mean, this is the type of crap my uncle hears, from the streets, that I was with him beforehand, or I might even said, I'm going to meet Johnny Fat. And so my uncle said, listen, man, the shit that you're doing there, all this crazy shit, and robbing banks, and these hijackings and all this, and cracking drug dealers and running up in dope houses with DEA badges and vests. And he's like, dude, you're out of your freaking mind. I can't help you. If you get busted, there's nothing I can do to help you, bro. Like, there's nothing. You're on your own now. You basically push everybody away. We're not gonna, because before you'd have a bondsman would bond you out and have family lawyers go to work, and you can get a judge. I mean, they know the judges. If it's in the right county in the right place, they could probably get a judge to work with. They did it before on a steroid case. My grandpa paid $10,000. The other judge only gave me 6 months in the county jail for this big steroid bust I got. And so, but I couldn't do it no more. So I'm on the last edge of my sanity. I'm doing heroin now. I'm $200 a day heroin. Chunk, heroin, maybe even more. I mean, I added up what I was doing, like 1.5 grams, I think. So that took $200 worth of heroin. And I live in a really nice house. I just bought a new house. It was beautiful. Not huge, but it was like 18, I don't know how big, probably 1,600 square foot. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-story brick ranch, beautiful. Everything was custom and new. The guy owned it before me, did a bunch of work to it. I had 2 or 3 cars. I had a jet boat and a 4-wheeler and a dirt bike and a Ninja, and I had all these toys. And I could have started selling them to kind of maintain my money and my habit, or I could start robbing mother effers. And I was like, I chose to rob mother effers. Now, for the kids who question my gangster, think about that. I showed pictures of my house and my toys, how I was living. I was still a 220-pound muscle bomb dude. You would never know I was on drugs. I had all these freaking toys, garage full of toys, a fiance that I've been with for 13 years, and a good life, but I had a habit. So when it came time to get money, I didn't go get a job. I didn't go to rehab. I pulled out a pistol and I started robbing mother effers. Just blatantly gangster shit. Gangster, walking straight in. Give me fucking money. And here's the money. Here's the money. And I just was out there, man. I was doing that for, I did it for like the last 3 months, but then the last week, I was just really bad, man. I got a crash car, and I just was going. I was going from store to store. Just boom, get me money. Drive freaking 2 miles. Boom, give me the money. And it wasn't added up. It was only like $2,000 a pop. I had bills, but it was the day my day I went to prison. My girlfriend and fiance had told me, listen, it's bill day, Al. I need your half of the money. I'm like, how much is it? She's like, $2,200. $2,200 was my half of the bill. But, and we always split it right down the middle. She didn't even make a lot of money. There were many days where I said, let me pay all the bills. She said, nope, I don't need your money. I'll pay my own half. So I give her my half. And she said $2,200. I looked in my pocket. I had $700 and I was out of dope. I was $700 and I was out of dope. So I needed money. I needed to go get some money. Jumped in the car, went and robbed the bank. And but that's the type of thing I would do. And then they put a tracking device in the money, and I got high-speed chase, and they caught me, beat the shit out of me, 6 cops, and busted me all up. Had to get stitches and a CAT scan and everything. And that was it. That was the end of my run, bro. They which is crazy when you think when I tell it like that, and those and all the like little mob groupies on MobTube who question that. Think about that. Think about so a mobster who got busted with a sports book, or some mobster extorting some guy from a store over numbers or something. Then you have me, who ran around the city with a gun, beating and robbing mother effers, one after another, and then goes to prison for it. Now, who would you consider more gangster?
I mean, it sounds to me like, you went from having a ton of street credibility, running collections for the mob and stuff like that. I mean, you were doing the bulwark, you know what I mean? They were sending you on the missions, and you were completing the missions. So
yeah, the thing is, I wasn't running at all for the mob. I would get a call over like a 10-year period. I did like 20 of them. So I wasn't running nothing. They just, when they needed a real tough guy, a guy who would send a message. That's what they tell me. I need you to send them a message. What do you mean? You know what I mean. One time Tony said, put him in the hospital. I want you to put him in the hospital. So I did. I waited at the guy's work. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. He pulls up in a Jeep. I get out of the car. I went and beat the shit out of him so bad. He dragged himself under the Jeep to get away from me. And then I robbed him. So give me a freaking wallet and a gold chain too. And that was the kind of guy I was. Now, that would be, I think I would classify that as pretty gangster. When a Tony Giacolone, the street boss of the Detroit Mafia, says, hey, listen, this guy's giving me a lot of trouble. I want you to send him a message. What's the message? I want him in the hospital. Are you sure? In the hospital. All right, boom. Here's where you can find him. The next day, I didn't wait week 2, 3 to surveil him. I parked across the street, waited for him to get in, jumped out of the car, ran over there and pounded this dude's face in, like bludgeoned, just smashed it. He's screaming, I'm pulling out from under the Jeep, trying to crawl away. This is broad daylight, 8 o'clock in the morning, downtown Detroit with, big buildings and skyscrapers and crap. I'm right on the street, bro. There's like the steam coming out of the manholes. 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm pounding this guy in the street. I don't remember if I told him why I was there. I don't think I did, because I didn't want anyone hearing, because there are people walking by, But, I got his chain and his wallet and pulled off. And then I told Tony, and he's laughing. He had me tell the story like 3 times. Like, so what happened? Because there's a funny part to the story. I tripped. So I was going to hit him with a crowbar. I had a crowbar on the seat of my car. When I see him pull up, I see him. So I like jump out of the car and I start kind of speed walking because I want to catch him right as he's getting out of his Jeep. As I'm speed walking across the street, I trip on the sewer grate and I like fall forward and roll, do it like a tuck and roll, right? Boom. This quick roll. And I jump right back up on my feet pretty much. I was real slick about it. As I get back on my feet, I'm like 8 feet from him. He was watching. He starts laughing. He goes, what the fuck's that, man? I'm like, so that was funny. The story's kind of funny that he had a good laugh at me. He probably, no, I did tell him. I said, Tony said something. Whatever he told me, he said, Tony said hi. Wanted me to tell you hi or something like that. But anyway, so I was kind of a lunatic, and all those old mob guys thought I was. Literally, they called me Pazzu the Proud. It's crazy gun. Pazzu. It's Pazzu. It's Pazzu. And I would do crap like that. They knew about me tearing up Nikki's pizzas and Joyce Groves Cubs. I mean, I was always fighting and tearing some shit up and knocking a mother effer out. I knocked out this kid came down to beat my cousin Dominic's ass because Dominic beat him for a bunch of money with loaded dice. So because some girl told him, yo, those dice that he beat you with are loaded. And now the guy's coming down there with like 5 guys to beat his ass. Well, there's like 12 of us on the dock in the warehouse. And Dom said, he's a big dude, but he's a pussy. He's a big pussy. 6'4", big muscle bound pussy. He said, hey, man, I need a hand. I'm like, what's the hand? So the guy jumps out of his car, comes walking over to him. And he says, man, come here, mother effer, I'm beating your ass. Give my money, blah, blah, blah. And he starts going towards Dominic. I get like this. I stop. I said, no, man, ain't happening. What do you mean? Who the F is you? I said, I'm the guy stopping you from beating his ass today. If you want him, you got to go through me. He said, I don't give a F. Bam! I hit him, just jaw jacked him, knocked him out. So he goes down. I look at his boys, like, you want next? Well, I had like 10 guys. So they were like, no. They peeled this mother off her up. Now, there's 10 guys witnessed this, in the market. And there were people around, people at other businesses and stuff, standing on the loading docks or parked over there, walking over there. It's pissed y'all. Like, this guy knocked him off for like 5 minutes, too. They were trying to peel him up, get up, could barely get up. They stick him in the car and they leave. Anyways, that was kind of the evolution of my life. But when I got to prison, I said, no, I don't want to be that guy no more, man. And that's when I started writing my novel. So do you feel like when you got to that point, like, were you kind of like just completely exhausted from the life? You're just like, I'm tired of, like, because at the rate you were going, you had 2 options. It was death or jail anyways. I mean, the way you were going, and not from like the drug aspect of it, but like we all know, like eventually you keep burning people and stuff like that. I mean, it was inevitable. Something was going to happen, death or jail. And they're the options when you're running that drug game and running the streets. So I feel as though, like, from your story, is that what you would say? Like, once you got to jail, you finally had that clarity you were looking for? Like, all right, now's my time to rebuild. I'm exhausted from that life, and I want to start. I want a big reset. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. You probably felt at peace with yourself. I was relieved when I went to prison. I'm a man of God, and like the day before I was arrested, went to prison, I prayed to God, God, I don't want this life no more. I don't want to do this no more. Do what you have to do to get me out of it. I'm willing to do it. If it's rehab, it's jail, whatever. And I went, and the very next day I was arrested, charged with 17 capital charges that carried life, 0 to life, floaters, and plus some gun charges, and that was it. I had to go to court over like a week or 10 days. They kept bringing me back to different counties and places that charged me. And they're saying my bond was 5 point million. I can't remember, 5.27 million. The irony is the extortion out of Oakland County was only $20,000. That's the case that got me the most time. So they screwed me. They reneged on a plea agreement. But that's neither here nor there. Yes, I was absolutely relieved, and I was just, there's a part of me that was almost thankful, and so I was just like, what do I do now? 13 years, I'm facing all this time. Should I kill myself? Like, I don't want to spend my life in prison. I don't want to do that. But God made it so they gave me just enough time to where I could see a tiny light at the end of the tunnel. Tiny light. And at some point I said, I can do this 13 years. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. And so I was in the hole. I've told this story many times. When I was in the hole for 17 months. That's another thing. To the mob groupies, right? Motherfuckers ain't done a day in jail. They're talking gangster to me, slick as hell to me, talking all this gangster stuff. Never did a day of time. I did 17 months in the hole, bro. They can't imagine. Them little pussies would have been broke in 5 days. Help, need mental help. I had 17 months. And what did I do? I wrote 3 novels in my head. Over 17 months, I laid on my bunk and wrote 3 novels in my head. And then when I got to prison, because this is while I was fighting my case in the county jail, I was in the hole. When I got to prison, I picked up a pen and paper and started writing those novels. And I knocked them out. People love them. People are mind blown. Just mind blown. There's a lot of big readers in prison, huge ones. And I would give them my books, and they would come back and be like, "What the hell, dude? Are you serious? I can't believe you wrote this. Like, this is the best book I've ever read, man. I've read 10,000 books. I've been in prison for 20 years. All I do is read. I don't even have a TV. I just read. Your book is literally the best book. That book is the best book I ever read." I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." Like, hell yeah, man. I'm like, "You want to try one of my other ones?" And I hand them the book. And so I knew I was onto something. I knew I had something special there. And I felt it. I felt it anyways. I'm smart enough to know. I'm cognizant enough to know. And prescient enough to know that the result, what I created, the end result was very good. Very good. Not to brag or narcissist, but I'm saying I can see it was very good. It's going to be great. People are going to love it. So I kept writing. I'd send my manuscripts home to my sister or my friends, and they read them, go same thing. "Oh my God, amazing. So they all want to help me publish my books at some point. I still got 6, 7, 8 years left. And what they start a Facebook page for me. And it says on the Facebook page, I'm in prison, serving these 13 years, writing books, and I'm a Christian. And all of a sudden, a couple of months after this, I get a letter from this woman. I don't know who she is, but she went to my high school. It's called JPay. It's a prison email, is what it is. They print it out and slide it under your door. So you probably won't remember me. I was kind of a nerd, a book nerd, different circles. I knew who you were, heard of you, just knew you're kind of a bad guy. That's it. But I see you're writing books on your Facebook. I work for a publisher in New York. I'm more in academic publishing, but I have colleagues that work in commercial fiction, things like that. Maybe you can send me one of your manuscripts. I can read it. If it's any good, maybe I can help. I said, "Hell yeah, man. I mean, how blessed would I be?" All of a sudden, some chick works for a publisher help me publish my book. So I had my boy, Eli, turn it into a PDF, the whole 1,100-page manuscript, which is actually this book and the second volume. It's volumes 1 and 2. So it's this and the second half about the same size. And so she read the whole book in like 3 days on her phone and iPad. Blown away. She wrote me back, called me a unicorn. That's what she said. I always say that because that's what she said. She's like, you're the freaking unicorn of publishing. And it's great writing, an incredible story. Usually it's one or the other, but you're both. I want to help you I want to help you publish this book and, help you, man. This book is, she said the same thing. This is the best book that I have ever read. And she's like, dude, I read the entire Little House on the Prairie series about age 4. I've been a huge reader my whole life. All I do is read. I worked in the bookstore in high school. Now I work in publishing. I had a literary scholarship in high school. I'm a read. Your book is literally, that was the best overall emotional experience I've ever had in a book. Unbelievable. Crying, bawling at the end. Couldn't even function. I needed a couple of days off. I'm like, that means I did my job. So she wants to help. She starts writing me. I'm writing her. She's writing me. I'm writing her. I was honest. I had 7 years left. I was not looking for a girlfriend. I didn't want a romantic interest. I didn't. But she started asking me personal questions about the things that I like. And I was like fishing, camping, hunting, travel, up north. I love pets. I love animals. I'm big into just getting away. And she's like, oh my God, me too. That's what I love. Like, just got out in the woods. I'm like, yeah, like hiking and whatever. And we started talking, and there were so many Me Too moments because we're both nerds too. We're both like trivia nerds. Like, I'll split out some random trivia. I first did it, and she didn't. I'm thinking she doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I'd tell her some random trivia, like I say the Latin genus of a snow leopard or something. And I said, but it's ounce. So when I say the word ounce, I'm like, but I explained it was the leopard part. She's like, what? And I thinking she would be like, what the frick is he talking about? When I said the word ounce, I said snow leopard. Look up in parentheses. I said, look up the Latin genus. Well, she knew. She knows all these. So we started doing this nerd stuff back and forth, like trying to impress each other with this random trivia knowledge, and it was fun. Anyways, we fell in love over like 9 months, and it was a fun ride, I'll tell you. And then I got to the point. She says, I'm going to leave my husband and wait for you for 6.5 years. And where do you want to live? And I said, up north, out in the woods, away from everybody. I just want to be away from the woods, and so I can go fishing, hunting for him. She waited 6.5 years. I got out of prison in 2016, July 2016. 4 of my homeboys were waiting for me. It was a big deal, very emotional. I walked out that freaking door. I didn't think they were going to let me. I was scared that something I did in the past was going to pop up and then make them hold me, because like they murdered with Johnny Fast. If they wanted to tie me to that, they could have held me. You know what I'm saying? And they tried to tie me to that. They came and talked to me a couple times while I was in prison. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I had lunch with the guy. He went one way, and they know us because when we walked out of the Coney Island and the security camera, I go this way, he goes that way. I'm like, you see, I went the other way. I just had lunch with the guy. He didn't tell you what he was about to do. I'm like, nah, why would he? Why would you tell somebody you're about to go murder some drug dealers? I mean, come on.
Even if he did, it's irrelevant. Like, you can't control what other people do.
Well, you could tell. That's what they're saying. If I had knowledge of this, then I am an accomplice to this murder if I don't go to the police as soon as he says I'm going to kill him. So they could have charged me with that while I was in prison. So when I were to walk out, they'd be a hold on me. So I'd have to go to the county jail and go through this case. But it didn't. They let me out. When they ate breakfast, that boys gave me a bunch of gifts. There's an iPhone. My wife had sat down to Billy because he drove up from Chicago to get me, and they give me an iPhone, and I got all this, this stuff they give me, like gifts and presents. We eat a breakfast at, anyways, it's like a regular breakfast, steak and eggs and stuff like that. What was it? Bob Thornton, whatever the figure it is. Bill Horton, is that what it's called? And so then they drive me 5 hours north to my wife, or not wife at the time, and I come home to my wife and have a very emotional moment when I come walk and see her for the first time free. I told my boys keep driving, drop me off in the woods. It's all woods, it's all wilderness. She made us a feast, a huge feast of turkey, turkey and oxtails, which I asked for, and then there was asparagus, mixed green salad, pecan pie, and cheesecake. That's what I asked for. She made it. Had a pimp chalice she got for me that said King, like my book. And I got a famous picture I should send to you of that day. It's amazing. And anyways, I come sneaking through the woods up on her, and she was on the back deck praying, and they didn't even hear me. I come walk up, and I'm like, what's up, Birdie? And she turned around, and I jumped over the deck, and we both, in tears, crying, hugging, and kissing. And and she had waited those 6.5 years for me like a soldier, and then my boys come around the corner with a camera and got some of it, and then anyways, and then I started my life, and then we had like a 9-month period where it was a honeymoon period where we were just preparing my book for release. So we did a lot of camping, a lot of fishing, a little travel. We went camping like 5 times, But then I buckled down. I finished editing, formatting, proofing all my books, and I published them. And the books did really well. I mean, they were in the top 100 for a minute, which is impressive. You know what I'm saying? As a self-published book, that top 100 is incredible. You know what I'm saying? That's because a lot of people were buying it at the time and reviewing it really good. So at one point, it was listed as, you know how they have the suggestions, like if you go on Amazon and you're looking at some book, right? Let's say you look at a mafia book, like the Goodfellas book or something, and then underneath it's suggested, you see like Godfather, or the top books. My book was suggested in front of the Godfather #4 and behind 2 behind. It was 3. The 2 behind the Godfather 1 paperback. So paperback is 1. I got pictures of it. I took a screenshot of it. It won't be there long, probably. So the book did really well. I mean, for a self-published book, and I sold a ton of it. I did a bunch of shows and interviews and red carpets, and went to BookCon in New York City, promoted my book with Larry Mazza. Me and Larry Mazza got a booth in New York City. Had a lot of fun. Just had fun, man. So this is where it really gets interesting, man. I mean, I lived the next 5-6 years like just unbelievable. And I didn't have a lot of money, but I lived like I did. And that's because I was smart, and I was always out camping, fishing, hunting, traveling, doing fun stuff. Oh, that's all I do. That's all I do. It's all. And you don't realize that stuff doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money. It's where I live. I can jump in my car and do it. Jump in the car and drive 10, 20 minutes, or just do it on my property, hunting stuff. So I just had a ball the last like 5 years, and did a lot of appearances. I was on Vlad. I was on Fox News. I was in the Huffington Post. I was, on and on. Made a lot of friends, man. This is where it gets really crazy. I met some really phenomenal friends, actors, producers, directors, and I just didn't feel like my circle of influence was that much until a producer reached out to me and said, "I heard your story on a podcast called Minds of Madness, and it's amazing. They did a great job." And he's like, "Dude, your story is absolutely remarkable. I'm going to read your books." So we read the books. Came back and said, "I want to option your books for films. But that's not it." He said, "I want to do something else, a TV project." And so I suggested we reach out to this one actor who knew of me. He had read my book. Well, I wasn't friends with the guy, but I knew him. I had his email. I emailed him and said, "You'd be interested in maybe having a meeting with us to talk about this project." He did. Here's the project. Loves it. He was down for it. This could be his career, like reinvigoration. It could be his career role. Because I can't say who he is, but you'll see. People will see. So now I have this project I'm writing the script for. So they're getting a big name screenwriter to attach to it, but obviously I'm going to write the script. I'm new to screenwriting, so it's a new format, but it's pretty easy. And I've already written like 115 pages of the script. Actually, that's the pilot episode. So we're going to go to New York in about a month and shoot some pilot sizzle stuff with the director, the lead actor, another actor friend of mine, myself, maybe the producer, who doesn't live in our country. So, I mean, it's very, it's a lot of puzzle pieces you got to put together, but they love it. They love what I do, and they love the script I wrote already. And so that's where it's going. So anyways, the story, well, I can't ruin it. I wish I could tell you. I can't. If I tell you the story, the paradox of the story, it would ruin it for you. I'll wait till when they do a press release, they'll do like a Hollywood press release, and it'll go all over the freaking place. Then I'll have to go to some big talk shows and stuff with the cast and the director and blah blah blah, and appear and talk about the story and how it came to be. But and that's coming. So now that's where I am in my life. I had to postpone my novel. I had another novel that I was about to publish, a political thriller called Blindside 2030. And it's a really good book. People love it. The beta readers are loving it. And they're just like, dude, it's amazing. But it's kind of polarizing. It's kind of controversial. And I can't have a woke mob coming after me because some characters in my books are anti-woke. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's just like they'll make it sound like it's me, even though it's just characters in my book or whatever. Even though I know the story does lean conservative or Christian, I don't really care one way or another as long as you don't force your beliefs on me. Believe what you want. But in the book, you know, the main character is a conservative Christian, so they're obviously going to say I'm a bad guy. So I can't afford to risk this TV project over this novel. It's a big deal, bro. The novel could make me a ton of freaking money, bro. The novel it'll probably go viral. And if you know, I could sell 1 million copies and make millions of dollars. I mean, it's that good. It's that good. It's just a crazy story. The main character is in prison. Breaks out of prison. He'd been in prison for 10 years. He got 3 months left on his sentence. He had 3 months. He didn't even do it. It was in there something he didn't do. He got 3 months left. He's about to go home. And basically society collapses. The Chinese hit us with a series of attacks. First, economic attack that collapsed our economy. Then they hit us with a cyber attack, knocks our grid out. Then they hit us with EMP attacks, knocks their electronics out. And now we're basically in the dark ages. America's in the dark ages. So we end up killing ourselves. China doesn't have to fire a shot to destroy us. They just wait. Over the next 5 weeks, we lose 225 million people from starvation. There's no medication, death. Everything's supply chain is. I mean, most 90% of people can't survive off what's in their cupboard for more than a week or two. You know what I'm saying? And it's over. So this is the book. And people are really into it. There's like a huge market for these doomsday prepper things and these minimalists and big YouTube channels that have millions, right? My wife's reached out to them. I would have went out there and be like, dude, bring me on and talk about this book. Anyways, so that's on hold because of that. You got any questions?
No, I mean that's great. I mean that's good that you have to pause one great project to work on a different great project, so it gives you more things to look forward to in your future. Which that's always good, man, to have stuff to look forward to. I mean, you're highly talented. You're great at what you do. That's why I wanted to bring you on because you're just you're great at what you do. You tell great stories.
Well, listen, stop right there, though. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do, respectfully. But you don't know what I do because you haven't read my books. That's what I do. When you read my books, come back and tell me again. For now, you like who I am as a storyteller or an interview or a subject to tell an interview because I tell a pretty good story and I have a little bit of story and I'm interesting. And thank you. I appreciate that. But you said, I love what you do. You don't know what I do. When you read these books here and come back and you'll know what I do. Read the reviews. Look at the reviews. Read them. They're all real except a couple of hater trolls. And they're, these people are literally calling my books the next Godfather. Some are saying this is the greatest mafia story that's ever been told. I can't tell you that. You have to read them yourself and you come back and tell me what you think. But anyways, I hope you do read them.
Yeah, I will. And I mean, to reiterate what I meant by what I said was building inspiration for those. You're great at what you do is the way you tell your story. It leads up to what you did, what you've been through, and now what you're leading now is what I meant by you're great at what you do by inspiring others, that there is hope in restarting your situation. No matter how down and how bad you came from, you can always rebuild yourself up to live that life you always wanted to live. And I liked what you said earlier and what we said on the phone to one another about a week or two ago, about money's not really you didn't say money's not everything, but you were saying the stuff that you do now, the hunting, the fishing and stuff like that, doesn't cost a lot of money, but it makes you happy. And that's what we have to focus on, is our own happiness. Because if you can find your own happiness, it doesn't matter what it is. As long as you're happy, that's what matters at the end of the day. Because if you're happy, the people around you are going to be happy. And, that brings a positive vibe to the whole situation.
When I was talking to this big actor and about the whole thing, he said the script has to be gold. Like if I'm going to direct, the script has to be gold, which I'll make. But I said, here's the thing: I'm not going to put crap out there. I said this right to him. I said, listen, man, ultimately my goal is happiness, and I already have that. So I'm good. If we either do this right or we don't do it at all, because I could walk away from it and be perfectly fine. I love my life, you know. And so if we didn't do it, we're going to do it right. Again, I could never proceed farther in life, my career, past where I am now, be perfectly fine. I mean, I love my life. I would like more time to do trout fishing and stuff like that because I got to work. But ultimately, love my life. So you're right. Get to that place. If you can get to that place in life, whoever you are, where, hey, man, you have you don't hate your job and you get to enjoy your life a little bit. You know, you want, be happy.
And I like like where you're at with your books and your the TV series and all that. Many years down the road, hopefully, that was like my thing was I had many jobs in the past where you're not going to be remembered as nothing. You're gonna leave an impact and a legacy years to come down the road. If something was to ever happen, you're leaving behind a legacy. Like you're gonna be an author. You are an author. You're an author of a book. Your TV series. That stuff's gonna be around.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really. I do and don't care, but ultimately that is true. I think we should all try to leave a legacy behind, leave an imprint on the world, something people remember, our kids and nieces and nephews and family. It's not that important to me, but what is important to me is because I was given this gift to write the way I do. It's like it's up to me, and I'm obligated to utilize it to generate revenue, because somebody with my gifts as a writer, you'll see when you read the book, has a very unique gift, a very powerful gift. And if I don't use it to leverage it financially, then shame on me, because God gave me this gift, and I have the opportunity or potential to make so much money from it. So ultimately, I want to make that money and then give it to my boys, give it to my people who need it. Just get that money and give it to people who deserve a break. Guys who I've met over the years who are real talented, just need a break. Like maybe finance their movie or help them out. I mean, it could be just a random Christian chick with a cross on her neck, and now you're like, how's your life going? What's going on? Oh my God, I'm in debt. This, that, blah 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 blah. I'm like, here's $10,000. Fix everything. And stuff like that. That's what I'll be doing with my money. Not buying Lambos and helicopters and crap like that. I mean, if I had enough money, I might buy a Lambo, but I'd drive it for a year or two and then sell it and get my money back. I wouldn't just have a bunch of stuff. My dream is to be a pilot. So I've looked at a lot of different airplanes. So I'd like to get an airplane, not a real expensive one, but so if I did anything ostentatious, it would be that. But that's just because it helps me get where I'm going much faster. Because I hate traffic. I have a fear of driving, so I hate driving. So if I had to get a plane, it's just so I don't have to drive. Anyway, so yeah, man, I don't plan to not leave behind a legacy. That's for sure. I'm trying to.
And I think that's great that I believe that we're all blessed with everybody in their own unique way is born with a talent. It's just having to sit down and actually find that talent. And I'm glad that you found the talent that you had inside you the whole time, that it finally, surfaced and came out. Because I believe there's some people that never actually get the opportunity to find their talent that they're born with. And it's a blessing that, some people can surface their talents. And I'm still trying to figure out what my talent is. But, I'm happy to see that.
What do you love to do? Here's the thing. Scott, listen to me. Listen close. If I asked you if there was no limit to what you could do, money is no object, what would you do right now? If I said, I'm going to come get you, we're going to go do something fun, what would you do? And money doesn't make a difference.
I mean, that's a loaded question. Like off the top of my head, I don't know. Probably go to a beach or something. Like the beach seems to bring me absolute serenity. Every time I go to the beach, it clears my head. Just walking and like listening to everything going around me and stuff, and that's where I can just be at kind of peace.
Yes.
I also enjoy helping other people, believe it or not. Some people could say I'm just trying to sell myself, but I really don't value people's opinions that are negative. So I really don't
Right.
care what other people say.
Well, that's where you go then. If you enjoy helping people, find a find a field of trade, a business in that. Go work for the one of these nonprofits. Start a nonprofit and just start helping people. Whether it be a rehab, whether it be a food bank, anything. If that's what you love and are passionate about, go do that.
Yeah. Well, Gunnar, it was a pleasure being with you today. I appreciate your time on Sunday. You know, I appreciate working out the kinks in the beginning of the episode, and it was an honor having you on, and thank you for the opportunity to interview you.
You're welcome, man. I know you're trying to start something new, so I've been in that position before myself, and plus it's always like I said with the little mob groupies, they always kind of tarnish and trash me, which I like. My story's always the same. It's the same story every time. I don't change nothing. I might miss sometimes do a little a detail or something might be off or forget a name or say a different name because I change names. But other than that, I mean, it's the same every time. So I always don't mind doing this because it just drives home the fact that it's my life. I can't change it. I'm not going to lie and say it didn't happen. Whatever happened, and that's that. That's why I like to do shows like this for a guy like you. But thank you. You've been a pleasure too, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks, Gunnar. Well, I'll be in touch, man.